I'm not going to say what's going on, everybody, this time. I say that for every podcast, but I'm really weird to start them out. But we are back. I am still friends with Ethan Rose and Theo Bachman. I don't know if anyone was
Let's
concerned
go.
about that, but I was thinking about that. We have Preston back again. We're talking about the NFL draft, some winners and losers. Preston and Ethan, a couple of Bears fans, obviously thinking high about Justin Fields. Are the Bears the biggest winner in this draft?
If you're talking sample size, they're one of the smallest because they only had like 2 picks in the first 2 days. So that's why, in my opinion, they're not the biggest winner. But I think for what they did with their draft capital, it was Ryan Pace played his cards very well.
I have to completely agree. We only had 2 picks. Trading up to get Tevin Jenkins in the second round, you lose that pick, but at the same time, you get a guy who the Bears might have even drafted at 20. So I think it was worth it. But just based on the number of picks we only had 2 within the first 2 days. I don't think we would be labeled as the biggest winner, but it's clearly able to say that we are a winner and that there's no way that anybody can make any other distinction with our draft.
Yeah, it was a great draft for the Bears. I agree. Fields is a great pick. The Bears need to do something. It seemed like everywhere they turned, there was no optimism at quarterback with Andy Dalton. There was just nothing going on. And I think it would have been the same situation if you get Kyle Trask, Mac Jones. I don't think there would have been a lot of optimism, but they made the move. They were able to get Justin Fields. And now they have someone that they can bring out to Bears fans and say, look, here's our quarterback. It's a guy everyone can get excited about. And like Ethan said, I'm a big fan of the Tevin Jenkins pick in the second round. I think that was a great value selection.
Yeah, I totally agree. We got 2 first rounders, in my opinion. Like Pace said, they had first round grades on Jenkins. He was mocked to us, one of the most frequently mocked players to us at 20. So I'm very happy with that. One thing that stood out to me from the Bears draft, 5 picks were all offensive players, which I think we certainly have some issues on defense, but it's important to address the offense and really support Fields with a wide receiver in Dasney, 2, they call him nasty tough linemen, and Jenkins and what was Sermon?
Larry Borum.
Borum, sorry, yeah, Borum from Missouri. I think it was a great draft. I'd be happier with Pace and Nagy, yeah.
I'm in that same boat. It's also I'd like to go to NFL analysis thing. I took some of the top 18 NFL writers of the past 10 years, and I looked at their grades for the NFL draft, and the Bears consistently came out on top as the top draft. And I know we love to point out grades and how each team did, but I think it's interesting to note that the Bears had the highest average graded draft out of any team in the NFL draft from just the NFL media perspective.
The Athletic put something up, and they used their big board draft rankings to compare where the players were selected. So they did draft capital that every team had, and then the amount of value that they selected based on where the players were in the big board. And the top 5 for that, the Bears were number 1, and that's a little analytical. So that's even beyond grading. So their top 3, they had the Bears, the Chiefs, and then the Broncos got the most value for where they drafted.
I want to keep it on the topic of quarterbacks and kind of analytics. I'm big into 6 degrees of whatever. I don't have quite 6 degrees, but it's kind of 3. Trey Lance was drafted 3rd overall to the San Francisco 49ers. Him, Trey Young, and Jason Tatum all have the same haircut. Trey Young has obviously worked out. Jason Tatum is a budding superstar in the NBA. Does Trey Lance follow in their footsteps, or is he the outlier in the, we'll call it, weird haircut club?
I like Trey Lance a lot. And I think he's kind of being misevaluated, though, in my opinion, because it seems like people think he's someone that needs to sit, whereas I think he might be someone that needs to play right away. because he didn't play this entire last season. So we're talking about it. If he doesn't play this year, that's somebody that's now gone 2 years without taking any snaps. And the way the positions moved is I think he will be able to succeed right away. He's obviously not going to be great at reading coverages and stuff like that. But I think just the raw athlete that he is, with his speed and with his arm, he'll be able to make plays even if he's not completely up to speed with an NFL defense. If he's late on a read, he'll be able to get the ball in there or make some plays out of structure. So I think he'll still be able to do some good things and succeed right away as a rookie.
I definitely have to agree. And one of the main talking points coming into the draft was how smart he was coming in to the NFL season, grading out as one of the smartest players. Of course, we don't really have those evaluations as just third-party analysts, but at the same time, it's impressive to note that most teams graded him as one of the most intelligent quarterbacks coming into this draft. Of course, he is raw, and that, like Theo mentioned, that only 1 year of playing is going to come in full fruition at some point this year. So getting him in quick, getting him into the system on time in the offseason, having him learn, especially from a Kyle Shanahan offense that has a lot of nuances and a lot of moving parts. It's important that you get him into the system quick so he can develop and start that process of potentially being one of the biggest superstars in the NFL.
He didn't throw a single interception his last year in college. So like starting him, he's not going to wreck your game with turnovers, which is why I think he's a good fit for the Niners. Because even if he's not there yet, he seems smart and intuitive enough that he's not going to completely wreck the game.
Yeah, I mean, we all think he's a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. At least I assume we do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So if the Niners seem to be in like win now mode, they're kind of in like limbo. We don't really know how they're gonna do. I think that if they want to win, they need to start Trey Lance week 1. I know like sitting quarterbacks has worked out or whatever, but this is the new thing, the new norm. You've seen it with Burrow. Herbert got in quickly. The Dolphins wanted to get 2 in, even though Fitzpatrick was playing well. You got the rookie pretty much as soon as you can.
So, Theo, you have an opinion about teams trying to find their Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers. Is that what's going to happen to Trey Lance?
I don't think so. Just based on everything that Kyle Shanahan has said, it seems like they were drafting someone to start right away. If you want me to elaborate more on what Steven's alluding to, is I kind of compiled some research today and I did an article, and the topic of the article was that every team in the NFL is trying to find the next Patrick Mahomes. But then people forget a big point in Patrick Mahomes' development was that he didn't play at all as a rookie. And every team's trying to follow the developmental path of Mahomes, but no one's following that step. And it becomes tough to evaluate because Mahomes is a complete outlier. So it's not like you can say, oh, Mahomes is only good because he sat out a year. Mahomes is freaking Mahomes. He was probably going to be good no matter what. But because the NFL is such a copycat league, I'd be expecting teams to have adopted that strategy by now. And it just doesn't seem like something that's happening.
So I want to take that from what I've seen the past 3 years. If the Jets would have done that with Sam Darnold and drafted how they did this year for Sam Darnold, he would still be here and Zach Wilson would be somewhere else. Sam Darnold was one of the higher rated prospects when he came out, now 3 years ago, whatever. But they had nothing around him. So they were just setting him up to now be this rebuilding quarterback, obviously in Carolina. But San Francisco is 1 year removed from the Super Bowl. They have all the pieces that they need. And they seemed like they were their now new franchise quarterback away from being back in the big game. So I think if Trey Lance sits, that shows that they want him, but they don't have the confidence in him. You know what I mean? That, like, we like you a lot and we're glad we have you, but, you know, you don't fit us right now. Maybe if Jimmy doesn't do it or we lose somebody else, then we'll put you in. But I think he has to play as soon as possible, or else his confidence, like Sam Darnold, who did play, will just be ruined, but because of him sitting and not being out there all the time.
Yeah, that's the tone of the organizations. So I compiled it. There's between 2017 and 2020, including Mahomes, there was 11 quarterbacks drafted in the top 10. and Mahomes was the only one that didn't play at least 10 games as a rookie. It's like even Tua last year played 10 games. And that list includes guys that didn't work out, like you said, Sam Darnold, Mitch Trubisky, guys that I feel like were just rushed in before they were ready.
So we brought up Patrick Mahomes. I brought up Baker Mayfield. I found out yesterday, Theo, you're a big John Dorsey guy like I am.
Mm-hmm.
The Detroit Lions, apparently they got something right. Dan Orlovsky, ESPN analyst, outspoken Lions supporter, is finally happy. Is this good times ahead in the Motor City, or is it just going to be back to like, oh, we have to watch them on Thanksgiving and they're just going to spit and sputter?
There's a lot of work to do, but I really do trust John Dorsey. What he did, he built the two of the best teams in the AFC right now, the Chiefs and the Browns. He had a big hand in building both of those teams.
I really
I
like the Lions draft too. What they did in the later rounds, especially, with Penei falling to them, they made the right choice. They didn't try to overthink it. They took the best guy available, Penei Sewell, who could have, if Trevor doesn't exist, he could easily have been the first pick overall. And just from that standpoint, I think you can call their draft a success by potentially getting a left tackle that'll start for you for the next 10 years, barring any injuries.
Yeah, they're kind of trying to change the culture there. Detroit Lions are kind of like just a stinky franchise. Like nobody really not like nobody hates them, but it's just they're the Lions, So they definitely need some characters in there. Whether or not you think Dan Campbell is a legitimate NFL coach, that's up to you. But he definitely brings a new energy to the field. I think they'll be interesting to watch. I don't know if they'll be good since they got Goff at quarterback, but yeah, definitely improved. And it's much better than they had last year for sure.
Yeah, I don't think the Lions are good this year, but the Penei Sewell pick's a home run. They did good in the middle rounds. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Ifeatu Melifonwu. They're not going to be good this year, but I think they have good people in charge now. John Dorsey's good at his job, so I wouldn't be surprised if we come back in about 3 years and the Lions are pretty loaded.
Yeah, and if the Jared Goff experiment doesn't work out and they fall between like 10 and 20 in picks, it's a pretty big quarterback class next year, and you're not going to get the Trevor Lawrences, but you could get somebody. Now, I have said I'm going to pick my new 2022 guy. That's Brock Purdy. I'm not saying he's going to be a first-round pick right now, but you know how the draft goes. No one thought Mac Jones was going to be a first round, so maybe Brock Purdy's the next one. But I think this team totally relies on Jared Goff. Whichever one you're going to get of him is how far this team goes. But I think if they win 6 or 7 games, they'll consider it a success for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But at the same time, I don't think Jared Goff can be a long-term solution to the Lions' problems. I think, especially with the amount of potential quarterbacks coming out next year, I think you really need to start building for the future, especially with the Sewell pick, which is something that will probably be used more for whoever they take next year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. The Lions win total is set at 5. For the over/under Vegas bets. I think the way they're looking, given there's now an extra game, I think they'll win. They were, I believe, 5-11 last year, right?
Sounds right.
I think they improved as a team. I think they win at least 6 or 7, like you said. Yeah.
And they don't have Matt Patricia.
Not having Matt Patricia,
yeah,
I should add really at least 2 wins.
He alienated the entire team somehow, which is incredible. But being a Jets fan, I know the feeling totally.
Have you seen his new job?
Doesn't he just work for the Patriots again? But now he
assistant to the coach, not assistant coach, assistant to the coach.
Yeah, but that okay. So that's
title.
like what Steve Sarkisian was after he got arrested for being like drunk in public. So that's just like a fancy title that they give like household names, and then eventually whoever the Patriots defensive coordinator is will be like, oh, I have to go to a wedding. And then Matt Patricia gets his old job back, and then we give him another chance because we're like, oh, we didn't learn.
We need a reality show
mean,
on Matt
for
Patricia.
Josh
Like, what does
McDaniels.
that guy do? I don't know anything about Matt Patricia. His home life. Is he married? Is someone married to Matt Patricia? I
Is
just
that
can't picture.
interesting,
him.
I just
though?
think he watches tape
Like,
and then he researches old army generals and he's like, I'm gonna do that, but the exact opposite. That's how I'm gonna rally my team around me.
I can't picture him doing anything else besides wearing that hat, having a pencil around his ear, and watching film. Like, that's the only vision of Matt Patricia. I can't imagine him doing anything else.
I want to know his relationship to Bill Belichick, because clearly they have some sort of friendship there. I want to know how deep their relationship goes and how much do they really rely on each other, or is it more of just a mutual thing? That's why Bill hired him back to the Patriots.
They might not even speak to each other.
Yeah,
I don't know.
just think Matt Patricia putts up with Bill Belichick and he's like, oh, I really can't do this on my own, so you want to take me back, Bill? Another team had an interesting draft. We do have a couple Saints fans with the Sports Wave, Garrett Cowdray and Andrew Tolva, of course. How would you guys rank their draft?
I mean, didn't really hit on the first round pick. I think we all know that. There wasn't really anything notable about it, in my opinion, for a positive reason. I'd probably give him a C minus around there. But
yeah, their second round pick. I don't like Pete Werner, the linebacker. He always looks slow.
Well, I know.
I mean, is that also their biggest need? I know you need to add depth behind Davis, but I really there's glaring issues on the offense that have been kind of covered up for the past few years that are going to expose themselves next season.
They still don't have a number one receiver at all, or number two. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, can you even rely on Michael Thomas after this year?
No.
You had off the field issues, injury issues. Sure, he's still got talent. Nobody's denying that. But no Drew Brees there. It's going to be interesting to see how well he does. I'm not going to be drafting him in fantasy. That's for sure.
I know Steven is excited about one pick in particular. Pick 133, Ian Buck, quarterback from Notre Dame. Now, Steven, do you think that Ian Buck sees any playing time within the next 2 years?
Ethan Rose, you are one of the top recurring guests on this program. I'm glad you said that so I didn't have to. Jameis won't get it done. Ian Book will win 4 games this year for the New Orleans Saints. And if you thought I was unbearable with my Ian Book discussion before he got drafted, wait until he throws a touchdown in an NFL game. Wait until he wins an NFL game. It's going to be so much worse. I'm going to probably never talk to Chris Mullen again. Andrew Tolva won't want anything to do with me. Garrett's probably still upset about the first round pick, and he's going to hit me with one of those lassos. But Ian Book actually said it yesterday. He said, do you think he gets the keys to the car? I not only think he gets the keys to the car at some point, I think he takes it and runs with it. I really do. This guy, everyone thought it was a joke, but then I actually watched some tape. Yeah, he doesn't have all the intangibles and the arm angles and the fancy stuff, but everybody loved playing with them. Brian Kelly was a huge supporter of him. Notre Dame made it to the playoffs. Yeah, they got smacked around a bunch, but there's something to be said about making it. Captain there, I really think he's going to do something. Or he'll be a career backup, but that'll be cool because, I saw it when no one else did.
Sources in league circles are calling Ian Book a super Taysom Hill. That's the talk.
Okay, and Taysom Hill and Ian Book on the same team is incredible. Those two need to pass only to each other. That's going to be awesome to watch. Another team who I thought had a really good offseason, but then maybe after the first round didn't have the best draft, the Indianapolis Colts. How are we gauging them now in the beginning of May?
I mean, Carson Wentz at quarterback, which we all know. So he's going to be another tricky guy. Reunited with Frank Reich, that's the big storyline there. Gonna see if he can continue or pick back up what he did in 2017 and 2018. I think that now that he has an offensive line in front of him is going to help a lot. They didn't really support him with much in the draft. I know they got a few receivers, I believe. I'm not really for or against the Kwity Paye pick. I like it. They need pass rush. It was him or an aging Justin Houston. So I wouldn't say it was bad in a way, but I think they maybe could have done better.
I do not like their second round pick, Deoingabo. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. Apologize about that. But the fact the Colts are in win now mode, and the fact that they took a guy who will probably have to redshirt this year because of his torn Achilles does not really speak that well to their success this year, in my opinion. I thought they should go get somebody else like a pass rusher or even like another pass catcher for Carson Wentz, but instead they went for a defensive lineman who will probably not play until 2023, which is a little disappointing. He does have potential, but the fact that they're in win now mode and they go after him does not really speak well for their success this year.
There's some
What do you guys
interesting
think
picks
about the
here.
Sam Ellinger pick? I believe it was that one.
Yeah.
Kind of stood out to me. I know he'll be competing with Jacob or not. Yeah, he will. Right, Eason's there.
Yeah, and I think is who's Brissett on? Where Jacoby
I think he's
Brissett
a free
go?
agent now.
Okay.
I thought he signed with the
So
Chargers, but I could be making that up.
So I'm pretty sure it's going to be. I mean, that's the thing. You never know with Wentz how unreliable he is. So the second he slips up, that could be Sam Ellinger's moment. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how him and Eason compete for the backup job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just described their class as decent in a way. Yeah.
Chris Ballard has a good enough track record that I'd give it the benefit of the doubt and assume some of these players are going to be good. But like Preston said, it's just a decent draft. Nothing crazy.
I think the Colts were behind the Titans for sure. I think that they're solidly in second now because Houston's a mess and Jacksonville won't do anything crazy. I think they could have maybe narrowed the gap a little bit with Tennessee, but they didn't fall behind. They could have drafted a little bit better. I would have liked them to get another receiver for sure. But I mean, I think that they'll surprise some people. They'll definitely sneak into the wild card, and depending on how the Titans do, I think they can contend for the South.
The division probably comes down to who plays better, Ryan Tannehill or Carson Wentz.
And Wentz just has to stay on the field and throw to the blue jerseys this time. And remember that he's on offense and not giving the ball away.
Yeah, Ethan, I know you're a big stat guy. Like, do you have like a stat on like this, what's like time to throw last year for Wentz or something like that, and just like compared to Phillip Rivers? I'd be interested to see that.
I know it was super low compared, and he was one of the lowest in the league, right next to Joe Burrow. And you can find a time to throw on Pro Football Reference. That's a big place I like to look.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was close to last in the league, because it just watching Carson throw. But even still, even when he did have time, Carson still had moments where he just did not perform up to a standard that you would expect him to at this point. And of course, I think that concussion too, back in not this past year, but the year before, really brought down his grade as well, and what caused him to kind of decline too. I think that is something we often leave out in this, but I think it's, concussions are a very weird injury and they can affect people in very different ways. I think for Carson, that really did bring down his performance over the past couple of years.
You think it's not fixable?
I think it's fixable, especially with Frank Reich there, but I think it's an injury that's been lingering, and that this year will really prove whether or not that injury had something to do with how he did last year. Because he has Frank Reich, the coach he had when he had his best season. And if he still can't win with the Colts offensive line and they're, well, not great receivers, but decent enough, I think that, to me, in my opinion, it proves that injury did have some effect on him.
The one season Wentz had is so tantalizing that I think we expect so much out of him, but he's now been in the league for like 5 or 6 years now. And most of his seasons, by and large, have been bad. Like outside of the 1 year, I feel like it's almost like we should just listen to what the numbers are saying for the course of his career and stop expecting that he can reach the level that he played at in the 2018 season. But I think there's a middle ground in between. I don't think we'll ever see 2018 Carson Wentz again, but I think there might be a nice middle ground that's in between 2018, but still much better than what we saw last year. And that's a quarterback that I guess is good enough to win games.
I think Carson Wentz is the type of guy that whenever athletes say like, oh, we don't listen to outside noise, this and that, I think Carson Wentz felt that everybody wanted Jalen Hurts last year. And to what Ethan was saying, kind of playing scared because of the concussion. So between that and the fans just in Philadelphia being ruthless, it definitely got to him and wore on him. And he knew that he was losing his job. And there was constant talk about, this should be Nick Foles' team. Nick Foles should still be here. So I think all of that just kind of made it Carson Wentz implode on himself. But now with a fresh start and a fan base that really seems to want him and an offensive line that isn't trying to just like get him killed, I think that it should work out. And if he can just be as productive as Phillip Rivers, the Colts will definitely be a playoff contender, especially now with one more.
Yeah, well, the narrative in 2019 was that Wentz is the only thing keeping the Eagles alive to win the division. I think they're like 7-9 or 9-7, I believe.
Oh yeah, because they made it into the playoffs and then he got hurt in the playoffs.
Yeah,
McCown
exactly.
came in and McCown
Like wedged between the 2019, Wentz is the only thing saving this team. They have no wide receivers, they have no cornerbacks, and Wentz is trash. Oh, he's the reason the Eagles suck this year. Is that concussion that he got in the playoff game? So I think you're definitely right there, Ethan. That really supports that. But I hope he gets back. But just after last year, it was very bleak to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rooting for him, but I put my money on him.
Pulling up some stats on the Manor too. He was pressured 29.3% last year. Other comparable quarterbacks in that category, Lamar Jackson was pressured 22.5%, and Deshaun Watson even was pressured 26.1%. So you could definitely portray that some of his problems were on the offensive line, but I think a part of it too is he just wasn't getting the ball out in time.
The last question I wanted to bring up real quick, courtesy of Deontay Salim. Aaron Rodgers, this talk with the Broncos, the 9 pick, possibly Justin Fields. If you were the Green Bay Packers, okay, I want to start with Theo because I know what Ethan and Preston will say. Theo, if you were the Denver Broncos and you offered 9, which would be Justin Fields and some other pick to the Packers, would you take that?
If I was the Packers?
Yeah.
I personally don't think I would do it, and I don't know if the Packers would do it. That's what we were talking about today in the Slack a little bit, is how valuable is Justin Fields to the Packers? Because they took Jordan Love in the first round last year. I feel like if they trade Aaron Rodgers, they just want to play Jordan Love.
Well, that's the thing. When you say if you're the Packers, does that mean if you're the Packers organization? Or if you're Gutekunst, because if you're Brian Gutekunst, that's a whole different situation. But if you're the Packers, the whole way to just appease this situation is by firing Gutekunst. So that's what I would do if I was in charge there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because Rodgers came out and said that he would be fine if he was fired. But if I was Gutekunst, I would not send it. There's got to be a way to save the relationship. Aaron Rodgers doesn't seem like the guy to sit for a year because he's unhappy with the contract.
I don't know. He does seem like he can hold a grudge pretty well, though. I could see him sitting out a year.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't talked to his family in 10 years, so.
Yeah, I mean he's a good guy.
You know how much Jeopardy you could film in 365 days? Probably 1,000.
I mean,
it'll be
Alex
like the
Trebek
Gronk tour, but with Rodgers.
And
Ireland twice a month, so Rodgers can do both.
And if you're the Green Bay Packers, or Aaron Rodgers more specifically, I wouldn't want that. The Denver Broncos are just the New York Giants of the AFC. They're on paper like this loaded, scary offense, ooh, but like they're bad. And Aaron Rodgers would do a decent amount, but it's like he doesn't have Devontae Adams. The defense is like a couple steps down. The line is about the same. The running backs aren't nearly as talented, so it would just be bad for Aaron Rodgers there too.
Aaron Rodgers' best chance to win is in Green Bay, and Green Bay's best chance to win is with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. So these sides should come together and get something done, but it seems like it's two assholes that are mad at each other, and we'll see what happens.
I think if Aaron Rodgers heard that idea, Preston, he would definitely take it. Just like go to Los Angeles like twice a month, just bang out like 4 episodes a day.
Who's his competition for the job?
Probably like Dr. Oz and some other people. Ryan Seacrest is probably in there. I don't know. I'm like 22. I'm usually winding down my day by the time Jeopardy's on. So that is podcast number 1 of a hopeful 15 this month. I'll be back Tuesday. I'll be back Wednesday. Preston and we're going to try to get a couple soccer podcasts out soon. Ethan's going to be around for some hockey. Theo's not going to be a stranger anymore. That's really it. Crazy weekend. A lot of sports coming up. May is going to be a loaded month from beginning to end. We got a lot of playoffs coming up. NFL never going too far. But that is all that the time we have. Thanks, Ethan, Theo, Preston, for coming. And I will see you guys on the next one.